Hey. Um, all right. So what I'm going to do, you guys, is I'm just going to jump right in and read the essay that, if you saw the cool slideshow I made with all the evidence, it was pretty popular. I think a lot of people saw it. I'm going to kind of expound on that and read the essay that I wrote. I'll go off subject, not off subject, but just listen in because it's all really good and you'll want to hear it. Um, This essay is meant to be easy to read and follow along with, even if you don't know anything about the investigation of Prince Rogers Nelson. However, this video is fantastic at summing it up. That's my attachment video. I'm going to read it as is because it's too hard to explain. Okay. I put in a couple of my videos. Now, as part of the PI investigation, Carver County provides an incident report. It begins on 6/20/2011 and ends on 4/27/2016. There's a lot of things that happened during that time frame, but I've talked about a few of them before. I feel like one of the most important things that happened during the time frame, the incident report, when Carver pulled the incident report, they did it for a certain time frame from 2011 to 2016, and that speaks for itself. But if you look at the incidents within that time frame, you find a lot of trespassing, cars getting broken into. There's some guys cutting a fence. There's some pictures being taken, people asking where to park, crazy stuff. But there's also the very important unidentified woman who called in, I believe, on 5/22/13 to report a rape. And I explained before on the telecommunications video how I believe that was during the time that they were setting up Jabber, and the Carver County called it swatting. But anyway, there's that. But not only that, Detective Hastings in his report, he wrote that when he put Anita Ray in his back seat during the trespassing incident that they speak about, that she said some words about being raped. So I find that all kind of coincidental. But anyway, during the incident report, the time frame is really what I wanted to say. There's a lot of stuff that people don't focus on for the breakdown that is really visible during just Carver County's incident report. So go back and look at that if you haven't. I'm going to go on with my story. On 7/20/2010, I overdosed on heroin, stopped breathing about 7 minutes or so from what I've been told, found myself in a spacey afterworld. At first, there was nothing but a door. Upon it opening, there stood Prince. Needless to say, I was stunned. I said, "Oh, I didn't know it was you," to which he replied, "Yeah, that's what everyone says." He then turned his back and walked into space. Here's something I wrote that's a little more eloquent. Upon entering the next room, there was no doubt that it was him. He sat in a throne chair projecting his 2010 Prince image. There he sat, shiny, looking oh so sexy. He sized me up with a side eye. He looked very serious, sad, irritated, yet unflustered. There seemed quite a bit of tension in the room. Notice I didn't say air because there was none. I recall feeling ashamed to be there, meeting my greatest love under those conditions, but mostly just captivated. When I saw him this way, I knew that we had met before. I felt this rush like a magnet that is being pushed and pulled, but unable to move. Fairly certain some angels were there protecting him by the throne chair. I may have asked if I could hug him. Being unable to control the magnetizing feeling, I took a baby step forward, but the protectors weren't having it. I put this part is hard to remember, but I think he was very displeased with me. I could feel it. When he rose from the chair morphed as him. As he moved across the room, the chair morphed into like a tail. I described it as a dragon tail. He had a huge white aura surrounding him that was part of him. He showed himself as sort of a white being, very old, as well as like a serpenty dragon appearance with wings. It's him, the ancient one. That's what I wrote. Something transpired. I cried, and the protectors left for a while. I don't recall everything that transpired, you guys, or everything that was said, but the angels left. He morphed again to look as Prince and told me that the world that we know has come to pass, that there is an order, a timeline to absolutely everything. The worlds that he created were run on a clockwork system of things, maybe similar to the innards of a grandfather clock. Everything very precise with layers. So I wrote that and attached it to my essay so that, because as I told you guys, I'm not the greatest speaker, but when I have something to read to keep my mind straight, it might help you to understand everything. So anyway, I mention it all the time, but for those that don't know it, 7/20/2010, you guys, interestingly, it was the 29th Tuesday of the year, 2 for Tuesday. And the 201st day of the year, which if you subtract the 0 in gematria is 21. Great deal more took place during this life after life experience. As far as, this essay, I'm sticking to the basics. It's imperative that I didn't remember anything about my life after life until the spring of 2020. Before that, it was completely blank. I never really even thought about when I died because I couldn't remember anything. The importance of that experience has everything to do with why I'm able to share all this information with you. The Cliff Notes version is that Prince told me and showed me how he is the creator and sustainer of all things. I'm trying to read fast so my videos aren't so long, so hopefully you appreciate fast talking. Much like Jesus was sold to be, only the one we know to be Prince Rogers Nelson is the only one. He told me and showed me that he is all things. I was shown planet space, his special hiding place. I believe it's called Marom, the highest place in Hebrew, Marom, which is Maron because they're all code words in the file. But anyway, I'm going to stick to them. I appeared in heaven's court, you guys, and I fought with accusers and protectors. The reason that I was there, I recall now, is the reason that I have this written on the board back here is because when all this stuff first started happening to me, I didn't really remember that it was because I was going to be telling the world about how John 3:16 is the lie on the world. I didn't know that, but as I get further and further into this, that's becomes very clear. It's 3:19, it's pi. I'm going to stick to the story. Anyway, when I was there, you guys, that's what I was going to say is because when you die and these accusers are sitting there saying, well, you profess these words about John 3:16, and you said that you believe in this idol whose name is Jesus and that he would save you. Now what are you going to do? And as I mentioned the other day, you have to explain yourself and what you did other than just opening up your Bible and reading a couple verses and closing it because you didn't understand it. Your soul is what's important and you're asked about it. So when I say I appeared in heaven's court, I did, you guys, because I fought the fact that I was being accused of believing on this because I was baptized and I said these words and I believed on that. And I stood, fought with the creator and everything and in the court and all these different things. But it was because I said, how are we allowed to live in a world where the grand facade is John 3:16? You guys, look, politics rule our world. Greed, sex, trafficking, drugs, porn, all these awful things. My 6th grade granddaughter told me that her friend was sending nude selfies. There's things going on in this world that I can't get the words out. I literally can't. They make me want to choke and suffocate because, it's not right. There's something very wrong in that. And what it was, and what I mean to say is it's the darkness that when I stood in the life after life and the extent of the darkness that was exposed to me by the creator when I fought with him kind of, and we talked about truth and how, I was sprouted up like that lotus flower to be truth in human form. And that's what I'm going to do. Let me tell you what I have here anyway, you guys. It's in the last video, and then I'll get back to my essay. It says Johnson's, Old Man Johnson's farm. You take John and you take away the O because the vowels are interchangeable in Hebrew. I'm not going to go all into it. So then you're left with JH, and I know I put a W there and there's an N there, but when you turn this H to a small h, lowercase, and this last line becomes part of the W, that's how the word exchange is done in their funked up transliteration. So it then becomes JHW, which is phonetically, I'm going to say it, Yahweh, or the name that we're not supposed to pronounce, Jehovah, which the Kingdom Hall uses. And, in the world, if you're a believer, you're taught, well, you don't use God's name in vain, which people think they shouldn't say Jesus Christ when they stub their toe. But the fact of the matter is you're not supposed to say Jehovah because you're just not entitled to use that name for now. I don't know all the extreme deep explanations on it, but I said it before. And so in essence, when you take the John and you take the vowels out, you're left with that. So it's another way to spell the name in English. Now, also, when you have the 3:16, you have in gematria, you can also lose the ones and the zeros. So what you're left with is 3 6, which is 3 sixes, or 18 life sixes, 3 sixes. Okay. So it's not just the Pope, it's not just Catholicism, it's not just Islamic nations, it's not the fake Judaism that's out there. It's it's everybody and everything, because this truth that I'm saying has never been exposed before, and it's what was told, and I'm sticking to it. So that's what's on the board back there. Also interesting, you guys. I know I said I was going to stick to my essay, but it never happens. Um, and Genesis 3:6 is, of course, we're using the same numerals in 3:6. Genesis 3:6 is when the woman comes to know about the knowledge. Okay, so um, and in Enoch 6 is when they talk about the sex with the wives that they chose and then made agreement not to tell anybody, the book that they took out the Bible. So the sixes, they're all very relevant, is what I mean to say. And I've discussed before, it's why the ICR numbers in the file start with 1 6. It's a slap in the face to the spelling of the name, as well as seventh day Sabbath rest, 6 and 1. So pardon me for a second. That's why that's back there. We walked and talked. Oh, let me just say something real quick. Sometimes things pop up in my YouTube. And today I saw this lady who was, I think it was part of a channel. I tried to double check it, but stuff like that, it just never ceases to amaze me. There's these stories of these people telling these life after life situations out there that are clearly made up, and they're clearly meant to twist people's mind. She was talking about being, you guys can think what you want. You can say I had my experience and everybody's going to have their own experience, and DMT exploding and whatever. I don't care anymore. I know that the creator told me that the things that I'm exposing have never been exposed to anybody before. And I'm not saying that to make me special. It's just to let you know how much I don't care about what anybody else is saying. I want to be respectful, but when I see the kind of stuff that's being put out there, and they're talking about this, she was talking about how God had this, she was even talking about the tightness of the curliness of his hair, and just I can't even repeat the nonsense because it was so nonsensical, but that's another reason why I'm emboldened to come here and tell this truth, because I don't want people to be tricked by the lies. And the lies are very thick in this world. It's very heinous, and I'm going to get right to them. Okay. We walked and talked, and he showed me my holy life books. Inside of them was everything I'd ever said, done, or thought. It was somewhat holographic, but as real as anything we experience here. Anytime he wanted to show something, it would just be there. He would bring it forth with an orchestrated wave of his beautiful hands. My sole purpose and capability were shown to me. He told me that the breakdown plan was on his life. To the best of my memory, I think he told me whether it was by use of a brother or sister, possibly Taika, like I mentioned before, a female Klippa energy husk, clone, or others, that there would be lookalikes of him. I also remember a memory of him telling me that in a way that he is the creator, he also, I don't know how to say this. I've said it before when I say that in this weird place where they use, I don't know, they trade skin suits, I call them, like on Minecraft. But the creator, he split himself into other beings to not only be other musicians and things like that in the world, but to show us what was wrong with the world so that we could see what was right. And by way of creating the things that were wrong, it created a contradiction, and that created this thickness and darkness in the world. But because as the creator, he somehow had to stick to that plan by way of his word until somebody came along to, I don't know, back him up. Back to the story. Let me see. Lookalikes of him, yes. Expressly for the purpose of deceiving the United States and the world as we know it as to who the creator is. He said that the plan was to make it so we didn't recognize our creator and instead would all turn to outside influences, politicians, sex, drugs, rock and roll, and golden calves. In Hebrew, gematria, the G and C, as well as the 3, they're all interchangeable. So golden calf, GC, interchangeable. That's where I put the attachments to my paper so you can read them. So if you want the essay, You will by the time I'm done. I'll just hush and read it. He said the plan was to, oh, pardon. Slave was often seen written on his face. There was a contract for intellectual property, performances, seances, and a certain amount of money that the others wanted. Their wages outweigh the time that they keep. The Merovingian Illuminati bloodline, the Pope, the K. Hall, Howard Kornfeld, Islam, Christianity, they're all fake and based on John 3:16, which is a lie. Old Man Johnson's farm. Kirk Johnson, KJV, King James Version, a mistransliteration from the original Hebrew script and intention, a purposeful misinterpretation of the original script in order to capture and ensnare souls into complacency. They raise you up just to watch you fall. It's America's turn, you guys. We are 246 years from the Declaration of Independence, and no empire is known to last longer than that. I'm going to skip the gematria on the 246, but it's pretty enlightening. As on a time frame that there's no escaping, you guys. The creator set a mathematical design, time frame, and force to absolutely everything. However, due to mankind's disgusting tendency to be filthy, power-hungry, sexually depraved, selfish humans, he had to let us fulfill our heart's desires in order to show his true greatness. Ultimately, it comes down to the fact that we are all reincarnated souls and don't know it. I was told when I died, you guys, that my soul, and I say this as humbly as I can, because believe me, it's hard to say, was again like Eve or this covering or his other half. And so I was told that I had never died before, that my soul had never tasted death, although other people's souls are somehow ensnared if they died and professed on the John 3:16 or something like that. It's a little cloudy sometimes, but don't doubt the truthfulness. Why in 2010, at 39 years old, 39, same as egg, I had invested 26 years of my life into all things Prince. It's now actually 39 years. So when I died in 2010, it had been 26 years, but now, and when I died in 2010, I was 39 years old. And now present day, I've been listening and loving and following all things Prince for 39 years. So it's the whole 369, because 6 and 9 are the same upside down. Egg, because that's why I'm here talking to you. Anyway, I wrote, I was shown absolutely everything about myself, and you should not doubt for a moment the truth in the things I'm saying to you. I know it sounds outlandish, but check it out. Think about how the world of religion tells us that Jesus is the Savior to come, in Christianity anyway, that he was hung on a cross and will be back. There's no such story in the original Hebrew about Jesus ascending to heaven. In fact, they talk about where he was buried. By convincing the generations that they're nothing but, listen, this is what the biblical story does. It convinces the generations that they are nothing but unworthy, sinning souls. You're more controllable and susceptible to false teachings when you believe that you're a sinner and you're a filthy rag and you're no good. And compared to the Almighty, you're not, but he put his DNA in you. So your capability is much more than you may want to acknowledge or are able to, but eventually you will, because you're shiny, shiny souls. Anyway, Christianity teaches that if you say the words in John 3:16, that your soul will be saved and you're good to go in the afterworld. But as what and for whom? Why? Why do you believe what you believe? By professing those words, you're actually professing a golden calf, a false idol. You are responsible for saving your soul. The Creator is in you. Real legions, they're false. Every one of them teaching to benefit themselves and not others. To achieve New World Order, you would have to convince a society how low and unworthy they are. Then teach them they are all sinners and unworthy of God's merciful and never-ending love. Separate them from their source by all means possible. That's when we get into ripping up and burning the Hebrew Bibles and transliterations and things like that. It's dumbfounding, but yet so obvious that it's a scam, and it's what they've been using to control people. United States of America has enjoyed the reputation as the biggest, most influential, richest, and most powerful empire in modern day. The breakdown plan is to watch us fall at the hand of our Creator. All the while watching to see them fall. The lyrics of love we make, they lift you up again just to see you fall. Pearls before the swine. He's telling us in all the songs. Getting back to the breakdown and how it was pulled off, the Creator saw ahead of time the plan that was to kill him on 4/21/2016, you guys. The date breaks down to 666 itself. Add it together. Okay, it just does. I've told you before. They want to possess more than the intellectual property. They wanted to do a very heinous occult ceremony on that day. If I remember it correctly, um, the others, the K-hole Hall, and when Detective Horvath went up to Howard Kornfeld Sr. and gave his condolences and also asked Andrew, did his dad work at the facility? As I mentioned, Eckankar across the street. Anyway, he saw ahead of time that they wanted to kill him on that day, and they were, because contractually, the way I understand it, uh, again, I've explained the intellectual property, all the music, all the creations, the creator, the artist, all of that, everything that the creator created, he contractually lent to so and so that then wanted to consider himself the creator, because we actually all talked and fought in heaven. And he really, this cat over here thinks that he created a lot of things when actually he just lent to the confusion and chaos of the world. So, but he actually sees himself as that because he's very, I don't know, he must be the epitome of the word narcissist. Worst thing I've ever met and seen and talked to in my life. Anyway, they wanted to own the intellectual property, you guys, and have an occult ceremony that day. And if you've ever seen the movie Transcendence, where they keep Johnny Depp, who's all in the media, where they keep him alive in a computer, it's like that, except for when, because the occult and the Merovingian vampiric bloodlines are, they planned on doing it in a way and that would be utterly and extremely painful. And so the fentanyl was brought in and self-induced, because no matter what, you can't, I imagine, like kill the creator in that way. So whatever it was that they had planned and what they had did left them scamming for an explanation. And that's why the file is so twisted and so contorted and everything. So I'm going to go on. If they would have been successful in this plan, it would have been, it would have disconnected his soul from mine in a way that I would not be able to hear from him, or vice versa. I neglected to mention that he told me that I am the source of a life force, his opposite, his soulmate, and female. If we would have been successful, if they would have been successful in separating the two of us, evil would prevail. Moreover, I was told that he and I are too powerful or contentious, one or the other, probably both. I'm not sure, to be in the same place at the same time. Also, he told me of a future time in 2010 in which he would contact me and I would be able to hear from him. And that was the spring of 2020. And then I definitely could hear in an all new way. So prior to remembering any of this, I considered myself to be that fan, not fam, the fanatic. I listened intently to every song, as I've explained, feeling them like I felt life-saving oxygen, as if it were my own. The music, it felt like it was mine. Constantly tried explaining to everyone that listening to Prince was like listening to God or scripture, the way I felt when I listened or read certain scripture. 39 days to present, I've been watching and listening, unraveling. I'm blessed and honored to be chosen to share this information with everyone and promise you as much truth as I can remember. The media relies quite heavily on the fact that Prince was taking medication for hip surgery. As part of the investigation, Richard Peliquin, he's a former Paisley employee, he stated that in 2010, Prince underwent hip surgery at Mayo Clinic by Dr. Truesdale. I've explained to you guys before, there's not a shred of evidence in the file other than his statement about hip surgery. Through the month, I'm going to read my essay 1 second, helps keep me on track. Though the month and time of surgery are not noted anywhere in the file, when I died, he was there, free from anesthesia, able to speak with me because of something medical. This is also the same point he returned to do the second half of the 2010 tour. If you follow up with that, with a different band, different set list. This is what I want to say. Keep in mind, hip surgery requires 2 to 4 months of recovery with physical therapy several times a week, you guys. Yet this Prince went right back to performing. And I mean full-time performing. Prince was notoriously private. When interviews were given, the interviews weren't allowed to have the interviewers weren't allowed to have tape recorders yet. Beginning in 2011, there was a nonstop media blitz and touring schedule. He did talk shows, interviews, and award shows, things he shied away from in the past. The new Prince wanted his day in the sun for sure. Prince was also thrust back into a full-time touring schedule, 2011 through 16. There was Welcome to America, European and Canadian legs. 2013 brought us the Welcome to Australia tour, Live Out Loud, Hit and Run Parts 1 and 2. And then 15 and 16, the Piano and Microphone tour, Welcome to the $1 Million Show. In 2011, that's when they started the incident report where we started. The concerts were held at the Oracle in Oakland, California. This is where Prince famously appeared at the Hornets game with the dark sunglasses and the fro. You really don't know who you're seeing, y'all. Noteworthy because we can trace Phaedra, Howard, and Andrew to the Oakland, Berkeley area. You guys have to remember when I'm reading this, I have attachments of my videos so that you can go right to the video to get the information you're looking for. Phaedra Ellis Lampkins used the address of 1611 Telegraph Road, Oakland, California, when she filed the first articles of incorporation for NPG Publishing on 12/2015. She was using an Oakland address. She filed a month later on 116, again with the sixes and the ones. You got 1611 Telegraph Road, and she filed on 116 a month after she filed the first time. But that time she used the Audubon Paisley Park address. So why did she do that, y'all? Breakdown. Okay, she's filing NPG articles of incorporation and using two different addresses, and of course with the 16. Recovery without walls. Now, in gematria, you guys, if you take the recovery without walls and turn it upside down, it's MKR and it's MK Ultra. Same thing. I just want to explain that to you. I show it in the paper. So recovery has a San Francisco address, but if you look at the map, you guys, you can see how Oakland is just across the bridge, and Berkeley College is over there too, where Andrew Kornfeld is said to have graduated from. One Andrew, anyway. If you guys watched the slideshow, you saw how I provided two different addresses. There's Hollis Street and his other address in Berkeley, I can't remember now. The other Kornfeld, he testified that he doesn't have a medical degree, nor has he gone to medical school. So if you watch the slideshow, you'll see. There are three different recorded addresses for the LLC for Professionals Plus, Andrew's so-called business. The media reports that the close-knit circle of friends reached out to Recovery Without Walls at the last minute in order to save Prince from the opiate problem. Now, I'm going to break it down for you a little bit. Karen Shaw, former Prince assistant, tells us that Phaedra's sister had received services at Recovery, and that's where the connection between the two came from. She also testified that Phaedra has overheard saying that she was going to get into Prince's computer and take care of it on Saturday, 4/23, the same date as the memorial service. Phaedra was seen shredding documents on 4/21 after Carver County cleared. So that's how you know that they were researching it as well. Another reason you know they were researching it as a suicide, because they're not going to let people back into the building to shred documents and clean up stains on the carpet and get onto people's computer. And if you read the investigation files, you find out all that. And not only that, but when the Marone and supposedly Hannah and Josh were there and the others, and they let them drive over to the county courthouse in their own vehicles to be questioned. They let them all sit in the same room together. It wasn't a murder investigation. Okay. So anyway, if it were a true murder investigation, I don't believe anyone would have been allowed on the property, blah, blah, blah. Phaedra, she's had a very illustrious career, to say the least. The media places her at Paisley Park on or around 2015. She wears several different hats at Prince's camp. The point is, she has been in and out of there in many capacities, whatever the family or the facility need. She is credited with winning back Prince's master recordings with Warner Brother. Her White House connections with Van Jones and Obama, they're very easy to trace back. It's the other White House, dig? The media definitely limits her involvement with the PI investigation case, yet she does play a huge role, like Pharaoh. Julia Ramadan, assistant as part of the investigation, she's credited with setting up the email. She communicates secretly after they claim his identity was stolen. This part isn't really relevant. It was about the email, and I've talked about all that, and I attached the thing. 1 second. I talked about the rape. See, it's a little bit hard to do when I talk and read. Now let's get to Kirk, you guys. As you're reading the Carver County incident report, on 1023, it's very important to know that there was an ambulance that went out to Paisley Park and they responded for a dehydrated male. This is really, really important to proving that Kirk got all the drugs. So if you haven't been listening, you might want to check it out. Again, like I said, for you guys that have seen it before, redundant. For those that don't, I'm trying to capture it all together so you can understand the breakdown and understand how it could take place religiously in this world to somebody that we knew, somebody exposed himself as Prince Rogers Nelson in a way that would help the world to understand who he is when he actually does like truly, truly expose himself. So anyway, let's go back. The ambulance that came on 1023, you guys, they came for a dehydrated male, went to the ER, and the ER prescribed Zofran and vitamin D. That's what's really important. The doctor noted that the person had not been eating in some time. The white blood count was low, blah, blah, blah. Now listen, Kirk's prescriptions in the file that are shown in the suitcase, they're ondansetron, which is Zofran, and vitamin D. Now, they like to publicize that that's no big deal because they're not narcotic. But the fact is, remember this too, they're in CVS pharmacy bottles. We're not there yet. But, all that was publicized was how Prince was picking up from Walgreens. But yeah, all the drugs that Kirk has that I'll show to you, CVS, written on the 14th and 19th. Anyway, it's relevant that the Zofran and vitamin D were prescribed on 10/23/13 because, well, I'll get to it in a minute. Kirk did that. The media likes to promote the fact that these are non-narcotic, yet if someone is intentionally dosing with these drugs as part of a psychopharmacological hypnosis neurological experiment, they wouldn't want to vomit. They're like, oh, okay, we have these non-narcotic suppositories that would keep a cancer patient from throwing up. But the fact is, if you were using liquid fentanyl in an enema, up your bum, or like, I don't like to say the things, but like alcohol tampons became popular for a while, and fentanyl can be introduced through nasal spray. Any way that you can get it into your body, it's not just suckers. And so you can imagine that all the enemas that were around Paisley Park were being used to introduce drugs, and also so you don't throw up all those drugs, right? Right. That, and I think it was Patrick Murphy who was interviewing Andrew Kornfeld, if I'm not mistaken. I could be. And he said, oh, I've heard about all the parties over there at Paisley Park. Is that why you brought the drugs? So, yep. Just point the finger at Prince Rogers Nelson. Sure. Anyway, psychopharmacological hypnosis. Blah, blah, blah. I wrote it. I read it. Is good enough. Take, for instance, the fact that Andrew Kornfeld brought Suboxone, Ativan, the anti-vomit suppositories, and possibly Ambien from what I looked up. Schulenberg, he wrote for clonidine, hydroxine, and Valium. Those three medications combined would never be given to an addict in withdrawal, you guys. Any drug clinic, before you can even take a person to a drug clinic to get clean off of anything, they have to be clean because they can't be responsible for the person dying in the clinic. And there's all this protocol. So they can say that he was trying to get clean in Hazelden or whatever, this or that. It's just all a big mixed up lie because it was a very hard web to weave for them, I guess. So anyway, what I'm trying to say, you guys, is that the media slapped Schulenberg for $30,000 for writing for Percocet, but he wrote for clonidine, hydroxine, Valium. He introduced clonidine and hydroxine in the office in liquid form. And he also said, of course, he gave the vasectomy, so he had access to the Valium in liquid form as well. So I've showed on my Facebook how he was carrying the respirator out of, So anyway, after that, you guys, Mariah Brown, those are all the drugs. And then Mariah Brown, she complained that after Phaedra was hired on at Paisley Park, she was switched from a W-2 employee to a 1099 employee, and she has a pending lawsuit for all the thousands of dollars. Let you know they were switching stuff up at Paisley, right? You guys, that was in 2013, but the media doesn't really publicize Phaedra getting into Paisley Park until around 2014-15, when she went from being in political activist and selling to the government to winning back Prince's Warner Brother rights. Okay. At Paisley Park, people utilize whatever title they desire. It seems around the world in a day type imagery. It's psychedelic, all right. Crystal is a Hetner, chef and personal assistant, responsible for hiring Deborah Johnson. She tells us she quit when Phaedra was coming on because she didn't want to be a drug dealer. She stated that Kirk, Marone, and Phaedra minimized Prince's drug use and that he could get drugs anywhere. Deborah Johnson, the one that she hired, she went on to explain the tax evasion. She said that the charitable love for one another charities licensing had expired, and that the Chicago show and all the cash shows that they were doing were causing big problems. So 2011, 2012, 2013, after that so-called surgery, they have a new lookalike in there running things. They have 2 sections of Paisley Park. Breaking it all down for you guys. Hopefully it's helping. The slideshow helps too if you've seen it, because you can see the evidence that I'm talking about with your own eyes. So they were letting, the C301 tax status expire, changing people from W-2 to 1099 employees, talking about being drug dealers, running the $1 Million Show tours. Now listen, on 2014, a Skype account for Peter Bravestrong was set up, you guys. When you set up a Skype account, you have to show your identity, pictures. You have to show your driver's license for Facebook. So it was set up 11/1/2014. Sorry, I'm getting a call. Now, blah, blah, blah. I was saying we should have been shown the identity as part of the investigation, because they're always saying, what they're saying. The suitcase bearing the same name was used as main evidence in the investigation. The suitcase contained black hair dye, passport, and cash. Prince was said to have never carried cash, no pockets. The case had 2 prescriptions in Kirk Johnson's name. The investigation called the suitcase Prince's because it had "You Got the Look" handwritten lyrics in it. Seriously? Come on. So you have hair dye, passport, cash, and handwritten lyrics. So all of a sudden it belongs to Prince. Schulenberg, he testified that when he texted Kirk at 8:15 on the 20th, he asked Kirk if he was still in town. So if somebody has a passport and cash and black hair dye, and Dr. Schulenberg is testifying that when he texted Kirk, he said, "Are you still in town?" it would cause one to wonder what they were doing over there, don't you think? Peanut butter logic served on a bed of lies. Peanut butter logic, Peter Bravestrong. Project Bluebeam? I don't know. Equally as important, Dan Pipenbring. Interesting thing that came to me the other day, you guys. Pipenbring. I'm always talking about 314 equals 413. Pi, P-I, Prince investigation, P-I. Pipenbring. Pi, bring, Pipen. Pipen. You could call me crazy. I don't care. Everything's everything. Anyway, when Dan was writing that he flew to Australia, he was shown to Peter Bravestrong's room, you guys, yet he never saw Prince personally. He wrote that he only heard someone shuffling around in the other room while the TV was on, and he never actually saw Prince. That Kirk had contacted him, showed him to Peter Bravestrong's room, etc., etc. Why would someone write pages, secret themselves away in a room while the writer flies 23 hours to Australia to talk about the book? It just wouldn't happen. Also, that was the evening that Vanity was said to have died, and it was Dan writes that Prince said it was the first time he had performed alone, which is noteworthy as well. Kim Pratt, you guys, it's a big deal. She's a pretty involved character. During the interview on YouTube, as I posted, she tells us she was Prince's exclusive driver for at least 3 years. She reports that Total Transport changed to Premier Transport in 2014, yet on scene, the card that was found, as well as the handwritten number that was found, took us to Total Transportation, and they claimed that it was an old business card. The reason that that's relevant is because they were always switching names with the LLCs and the DBAs, Phaedra and Friends. So that's why that's relevant. Also, the YouTube video with the investigative, whatever it is out there on YouTube, where Kim Pratt says, I believe it's at 2 minutes and 58 seconds or thereabouts. She says that Prince died on the 19th. She then corrects herself and said that she dropped him at Paisley Park at 2 a.m. after dropping Marone. What's really, really, really relevant about the 18th and 19th, you guys, is the way that Larry Graham reports that he saw Kirk, Marone, Prince on the 18th, which would have been Monday. And Kirk reports that he didn't see Prince until the 19th. He said he didn't know him. He said he saw him on the 16th, but then didn't know if he saw him again. Didn't know if he saw him again until the 19th. And he said that the meeting that he had with Larry Graham, Marone, and everybody was on the 19th. Kirk did. So between Larry Graham and Kirk and the 18th and 19th, everything's all twisted up. But what you also need to know is that, as I said before, there were prescriptions written not only on the 14th, but also on the 19th, and they weren't filled at Walgreens. They were filled at CVS Pharmacy. So they all saw each other, and also Kirk sent a message to Dr. Schulenberg on the 18th that said, "See you tomorrow." So the whole 18th and 19th thing, and the fact that Kim Pratt said that she dropped that Prince died on the 19th and then changed it to dropping him off, really leaves us to question, especially since the date would then be 419, which is 1914, World War I, lying, hiding behind corporate eyes, 1914. It would also explain a stiff body. So going on, Ray and Jewel Roberts, you guys, People's Organic LLC. Ray, the self-proclaimed recovering addict, he has access to Suboxone as well. Reportedly, he was the last person to see Prince alive. He tells a lot about he and his wife's duties at Paisley Park. But what's really interesting is that when Kirk is questioned, Kirk under questioning says there was no reason for the chef to be there that early when he was being questioned. So what did he mean that early? So people are lying all over the place. And then I went to break down the investigation. Tells us that Marone asked Ray to be at Paisley on the 20th with pre-made food. Ray reported that he arrived at 7:45. Marone previously mentioned that she was dismissed at 4:30 by Prince, told she wasn't needed, and that Kirk was taking him to the doctor. So in my book, you guys, that leaves a window of 4:30 to 7:45 where Marone's whereabouts, a main character in the investigation, are never verified. I think she was playing Prince Part 2. Marone, the other girl, whatever her name is, not the lookalike, but Crystal, Mariah Brown. Most of the girls that worked out there were former models and stuff like that. So they all play these dual roles. They're not people out there taking care of the world's one and only that we knew. It's not going down like that. So lost my place. Just a minute. My point is, you guys, that Dr. Schulenberg, when he testifies that Kirk, on the 7th, he said that Kirk and Marone brought Prince over to his office, but then in the other testimony, he says that he transported Prince. So, and when he says that he transported Prince, he said Prince left comfortable in the presence of Marone. So the way they use their word slinging, it's some crazy, weird, occultic, weird. I don't know what's going on, dude, but it's going on. I'm just telling you the truth. Marone goes missing all the time. And although during the file, we're told that she didn't give a statement, she did. She even has an interview on that same investigative justice or something like that. And she gives this useless interview. But the file states that she wouldn't give one because she had signed a whatever clause. And again, it's at least 2 or 3 different files. You just have to take time to slice them and dice them. She lived at room 127 at the Country Inn and Suites, and Detective Horvath says that as he was made to go over to the Mercantile or Americana Bank that was across the street at the time, but their video USB that he collected was just such a grainy image that he couldn't see. They also tell us that there are countless packages, the DEA, being delivered to Country Inn and Suites. It's important that you guys know about all the dirt in the background and don't just open your People magazine and, believe what they say. So it may go off a little bit, but it's all there. On the 20th, you guys, what I'm getting at is that even though Marone asked Ray to bring the food, why wasn't she there to let him in? Why did he have to wait outside until Kirk and Prince got back and Prince's window went down and his arm made the motion to come on in? But then they drove all the way around to the back and came in through the front. And then Ray tells us that they were in the other room discussing, that they were upset that they had seen Prince and who was going to be checking on Prince and so forth and so on. Marone's accountability is nil. Anybody's accountability in this file, it's like nonsensical. Now listen, Ray, he mentioned that the workload was light lately when they were interviewing him, so he didn't need his wife Jewel's help. Yet the Paisley Park after dark parties that they had, the one on the 16th is publicized, but if you watch my video, Let's Talk About Tex, it's called, it breaks it down that they were partying on the 17th and 18th as well. And not only that, but the Atlanta Outpost something or something I talked about and disclosed on the Let's Talk About Tex video, where there were concerts planned for the 18th as well. So they weren't trying to save anybody and get them to the clinic. They were trying to use and abuse whatever they could for as long as they could. Trust and believe. You guys, Theo London, this reads really good when you read it the way without me talking. So again, if you want it, get it on my Facebook or leave your email. Theo London, you guys, he has good things to say mostly, but he stated that he planned the after party on the 14th and the 15th, stating that Prince did not attend the party, not that they didn't have one. We're not told of an after party in the media, so this is especially important detail. He also states that Phaedra and friends were at Paisley after the 25th, shredding documents talking about removing a stain on the floor by the elevator. He mentioned that the three had the password to Prince's computer and that he thought it to be Peter Bravestrong. Imagine that. It's exceptionally important to know that during the Welcome to Canada tour, there's a bodyguard used by the name of Renville Wellington. He came back onto the scene in 2015. The evidence shows that there was a Go phone established in his name on 6/9/15, just 6 days before the secret concert at the Obama White House. Phone records, his phone records, they established that on all the pertinent dates. 3/23/16 is a very important date in the file, you guys. And if you look at the phone records, it's because it's when the K Hall, Howard Kornfeld, and the facility celebrate the remembrance of Christ. So on that day, Kirk was in constant contact with Renville Wellington through 4/19/16, which was the last time that they were in contact. But as I've exposed before, you guys, dual purpose, dual identity, the Go phone records that are supplied as Renville Wellington's also match completely and utterly time, duration, extent, every single phone call. When Kirk's records are provided for the 14th of April, every call that he makes to Kim Pratt, they match up exactly the phone records to Renville Wellington, which I discuss on that video. If you're interested in hearing that, it starts at 11:57 in the morning and continues. So each time there's a call to Kim Pratt, it's the same on Renville Wellington. So dual purpose, dual identity. It's trash. But it's important to know that the file is so fraudulent that the phone records that are provided, and I went and said the same. Now, also, you guys, New York, I showed in the slideshow that Howard Kornfeld keeps a New York address. I believe it's 1611 something, which again with the 16. But it's also New York is where the pharmacist Andrew Reinhardt, who called Paisley Park 28 times, that's where he's from. On the Go phone, Renville Wellington's Go phone, there are countless calls to New York and Canada, which connect. You can get into Canada through New York in the tunnels and bridges and things. So if you guys didn't know that, you can also get in fentanyl and stuff like that. However, DEA, they tell us that Andrew Reinhardt was a super fan, that he called Paisley Park 28 times between 12 and 12:50 a.m. However, that would be a complete lie because the death was not publicized until approximately 1:15 on the 21st. So I don't know how he could have called between noon, 12 and 12:50, because he was concerned about Prince dying. Just saying, it's all in the file. I show this proof on the slideshow. Surely you want to know about the telecommunications documentation provided by these shady characters. Throughout the file, we are consistently told that AT&T, Sprint, and Verizon are utilized by the main players. Yet, in the file, we're provided LLC, Questlink, CenturyTel, and Integra, a.k.a. Electric Lightwave, headed by Ann Tollefson, Department of Regulatory Affairs. You guys really got to watch the telecommunications video, but Ann Tollefson, in her LinkedIn profile, she credits herself with the Jabber phone system that was set up in 2013. But further, she also provided documentation that there were no calls to Paisley Park on the 21st, and we're told by the DEA that there were 28 phone calls at least from Andrew Reinhardt's alone. So the fact that Ann Tollefson, who, check this out, new information alert, the license plate on the bus that's in the back where the Anita Ray supposedly was busted for trespassing has an Oregon license plate. Well, Ann Tollefson is also from Oregon. She lived and worked out there for, I think it was quite 4 years on her LinkedIn profile. So every little tidbit, these eyes and these ears were watching. You know what I'm saying? Oregon. It'll come to be important later on, I'm sure. But the fact that she provided the information, the fact that Integra, also known as Electric Light Wave, QuestLink, and CenturyTel, those are the ones that you can get on the computer and text people if you don't have a cell phone, stuff like that. It's all real shady. And so when the detectives asked for the information on the 2 phone numbers at Paisley Park, Ann Tollefson ported him a folder full of like 6 or 8 different phone numbers that applied to the other file that they were investigating. All very shady. We talked about the enemas, etc. This town needs an enema. You guys, all important. The mysterious Sean Powell is allegedly Kirk's nephew. His signature is on the crime log sheet on 4/21 at 1 p.m. I've talked about some of this stuff before, but again, I won't stop. Sean Powell, you guys, address 7802 West 111th Street, Bloomington. Okay, the Walgreens video that the detectives tell us that Kirk Johnson is seen on the 14th picking up Percocet in Bloomington. Bloomington is at least an hour and a half away from Dr. Schulenberg's office. So why is he going to drive from Northview Hospital with Dr. Schulenberg? Let's say, for instance, we believe the media, and by golly, Kirk called up Dr. Schulenberg and said his hip hurt or Prince needs some medication for his hip, and Dr. Schulenberg wrote in his file, Kirk's back hurts, went over low axial back pain without alarm symptoms, have known him for 16 years, first time request, has to pick up in person. Lies, lies, lies. So then Kirk picks that up in person and drives all the way up to Bloomington, Walgreens, to fill it. Then he shows up at Dr. Boo's office in White Bear Lake after 2 because she didn't get to the office till 2. Then he drives to the airport and gets on the plane at 2:32? I don't think so. So anyway, the fact that Sean Powell's home address is in Bloomington, very important. The fact that Sean Powell, Kirk Johnson, is seen picking up the Percocet on the 14th in Bloomington, relevant, okay? Also, on 11/3/2018, you guys, country's largest fentanyl bust, 3/4 of a gallon in Bloomington. The address was undisclosed. According to Carver County, there were 18 fentanyl deaths January to September. However, during the interview in the PI investigation, Detective DEA Jeff Voller, he told us he had no way to track how many fentanyl deaths there had been. That's how deep the breakdown goes. That's what I'm getting at. I'm not just trying to throw a bunch of facts at you. I'm trying to, if you see so many and you're still denying the truth, well, for those that know the number and don't call. Bloomington. Sean Powell lived in Bloomington. The drugs were picked up in Bloomington. The DEA fentanyl bust, country's largest in 2018, was in Bloomington. Also, the Chanhassen deputies were called to Powell's former address as the new buyer had found 4 prescriptions in Sean Powell's name. They were non-narcotic. However, it was a bunch of weird stuff. Now, you guys probably know by now, if you listen to me, that on April 14th, it said that Kirk contacted Dr. Schulenberg to get the medicine, not only with the hip and lie in the back and the, hey, it's Prince's, but the fact is, you guys, he didn't even contact Dr. Schulenberg. He contacted Dr. Boo at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Then she calls Dr. Schulenberg, you can tell. And then Dr. Schulenberg calls Kirk. So the fact that the media sells that he called to get medication for Prince in Prince's name, and Dr. Schulenberg is the one that called him, is really just another huge absurdity. So I hope you're enjoying all these absurdities. You guys obviously were told that he boarded the Dassault Falcon at 2:32. And like I said, how could he be in White Bear, Bloomington, and Schulenberg's office getting all the drugs? When you read, you know that Dr. Boo didn't come on until 2 o'clock that day. So hold on, let me just, boy, I'm making a video. I'll call you back. So I've talked about Natalia Phillips before and all the lookalikes and the 70% of phone calls being to and from Paisley Park. Man, what? Must be important, you guys. Sorry. Um, it's my son. Otherwise, I wouldn't do this. What a dork. All right, hold on. Anyway, the 70% of calls to and from Natalia Phillips, you guys, it's huge to know that during from 323 when they were doing the Christ Remembrance at the K-Hole Hall, that's when 70% of those calls were. So she was another lookalike, and she was doing the print work, and she took credit for the piano and a microphone tour print work as well as musicology print work. Natalia Phillips. Okay, now he's not answering. I've talked about the stream of consciousness regression that Pipe and Bring writes about in the book. You guys, my point is opiates were being used to do all kinds of things that we can't even really fathom or think about. But because I had my life after life, and because I was shown these things that I've never even been able to like comprehend, I can't see without these. I wrote, you guys listen, I wrote the stream. This is where Dan Pipe and Bring writes on page 9 about his perception of the piano and microphone tour on the first night in Australia. Prince began a stream of consciousness regression, pantomiming, eating popcorn, and talking to his father about playing the piano. He tells us that P stated, "I'm actually happy to see you go," inferring that Prince was speaking to his father. When my mom, when she was dying of inoperable lung cancer, she had a stomach tube. I would give her fentanyl, morphine on request. She acted much that same way, very regressed back into seeing us open Christmas presents as kids. She thought that we were coming in the door as kids. She saw people that weren't there all the time, and you regress very much into that foreign place. I myself have experience with taking morphine pills, oxycodone pills. If you take enough, it can also send you back into that place. So why use regression and psycho, all these formulas that Andrew was using stuff, you guys, because it keeps somebody in a hypnotic state of mind. I was looking up and researching the 3 most popular prescriptions for opiate-induced coma are propofol, Michael Jackson propofol, phenobarbital, and thiopental. Fentanyl is used as well as LSD and other hallucinogens to provide medically induced comas. As used in MK Ultra experiments, there are many agents available that can paralyze a person yet leave them able to feel. So if you were being tortured and paralyzed and electrocuted and made to feel, would you not want to take drugs? Just another hypothesis for you guys to consider. Fentanyl is used as well as LSD and other hallucinogens. Oh, I just read that. Long-term use can lead to chest infections and sore throats, to name a few. There are a great deal of antibiotics and cough drops to be found on scene. Dan states that Prince said, "Sometimes I feel like I'm a long way from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone." He spoke more about lucid dreaming and seeing deceased loved ones. Drugs. Dan never met Prince outside of a couple of dark meetings at Paisley Park and never in Australia. He wondered why he flew 23 hours only to be given pages to read while Prince was secreted away in another room. Moreover, he wrote that on January 30th, 2016, he saw Prince leaving the Country Inn and Suites, his afro looming disproportionately. Marone lived at Country Inn and Suites, room 127. This is really interesting too, you guys. Pipe and Bring writes on page 40 that Phaedra Ellis Lamkins, Prince's lawyer, had been given a one-time power of attorney to sign the book deal on April 7th. April 7th is the first day that we're told that the concerts were canceled and things started going defunct and everything. But they don't publicize that supposedly there was a power of attorney to Phaedra, which she used to file the NPG articles of incorporation that I show on the slideshow. And during the investigation, Dr. Schulenberg writes that when Prince called back on the 8th, that he said that he had seen a chiropractor on the 7th. So not only do we have Dr. Schulenberg being introduced on the 7th of April, we have a chiropractor having come that day, as well as the notary supposedly coming to have Phaedra sign the power of attorney. So that's a lot of people coming in on the 7th, which the first concerts were canceled. Don't you think all 7, and we'll watch them fall, 7, 14, and 21? That's what I thought. Anyway, PI tells us two stories about 4/7/2016. Schulenberg talks about how Kirk had been his patient for 16 years, and he heard from Kirk in the fall of 2015 originally to see if he would help out his boss, and then he didn't hear from him until the 7th. So 7th, 7th, 7th. It's all lies. We talked about the 7th and the 14th and 21st, you guys. I'm going to skim. I don't want to be redundant. Renville, Wellington, you guys, very important. If you don't know, Canadian, let me read. Oh, this is important. You guys, Moline, during the Moline, that's why I shouldn't skim. We're looking at Kirk's phone calls on the 14th, you guys, and I mentioned some of this before, and I'm assuming most of you have watched. Pilots Gallus and Betchholt, they give two very distinct, different stories about Moline, and what's really important is that Gallus or Betchholt, I'm not sure which. 1 second. Boy, I'm making a video. I say I'm right in the middle of a video. I'm going to call you right. Oh my God, I'm going to call you right back. He's showing me money. He's so silly. He just showed me a bunch of money that he made. My boy. Anyway, Gallus utilized his in-flight app, his flight app, to quote that they departed Atlanta at 10:30 p.m. on 4/14, but Betchholt told People magazine that the Falcon departed at 12:51 a.m. So my thought that was more consistent with the two concerts being performed on the 14th and possibly an after party that Prince didn't show up to. I don't know. I mean, why would they report the two different times? So that would explain their flight. The party would explain their flight plan differences, but it wouldn't explain the call that Kirk made on the 14th to Stephen Kjell, Kjell, to Aviation Lifeline. That's like a life-saving pilot service at 4:40 that day. And then also, you guys, it's really interesting to know that Kirk's phone records on the 14th, his phone goes silent at 1:32. And then when it comes back on, the first person that he texts is the Renville, Wellington, Kim Pratt person at 1:32. And he says that Prince has the flu, not that he overdosed and they gave him Narcan at the airport. So that would make him a huge liar, because when you listen to Kim Pratt give her interview, she says that Kirk said Prince is in the hospital with the flu. And then Kim says, should I wait here for the second plane? And he said, no, just go ahead, because the pilots are timed out because they can only fly 14 hours. That would explain why Kirk's phone records had to be deciphered in UTC time and Central time. They had to decipher when he was where, because they're all lying. The breakdown. It is what it is. You guys, the Moline Quad City Airport is a legal port of entry to the United States. You can do Canadian bodyguards. There's all kinds of identification problems where the person who is ID'd as carrying Prince off the plane is described as 5'7" or 5'8" and 300 pounds. Kirk Johnson is not 5'7" or 5'8" and 300 pounds. He's not. He's not your typical big black guy. He's short. He's short as a girl. Look at his Instagram. Anyway, so discrepancies all around with the bodyguards. In Moline, there's a $10,000 check to a Canadian clothing store in Phaedra's accounts receivable. The Canadian Mountie was questioned along with the Royal Bank of Canada for suspicious activities. As well, the DEA contacted Canada to see if the Go phone was doing drug activities. So the incident report that I started out talking about shows that the U.S. Customs reached out to Carver County for contact information at Paisley. So again, the breakdown, you guys, the discrepancies between the EMTs, police, and fire reports, they're much too numerous to recount here. I'm sure my video is getting long. I can't see because I'm reading. But during the paperwork shuffle of the Moline and DEA, and there's at least 3 different identities. I've showed them to you guys. We have the Prince Nelson, that's spelled Prinxe, whose birthday is 6/7/54. And then we have the one whose birthday is 6/7/59. All kinds of identities. Watch the videos. They're just too numerous to talk about here. The fact that the media publicizes that Kirk ascertained the medication on the 14th for Prince, but they don't disclose that there was medication in the trash that was written on the 19th, filled at CVS. It was also the 10 Tylenol 3 with codeine that he got from Dr. Boo. So 14th and the 19th, 19th, 14th, World War I, corporatized lying. Okay, getting the drift yet? I don't know. Let me check over here. This video is probably long enough. Yeah, let me see. It's getting long. I want to finish my story. TMZ, they report, excuse me, with the identity, you guys, too. I've also shown on TikTok, on my Facebook, on everywhere, when you're reading the DEA paperwork, it's not just the identities and the birth dates and the fact that the hospital, when they put prescriptions under this encounter, they put the Percocet. So no hospital is going to take and put medications not in your name and on your person as part of your medical records. So we know that was Kirk Johnson because the medication was written in his name. You see what I'm saying? Then you go on to read the reports and they talk about how it was found in his black bag. And he was seen carrying the black bag on camera in Moline, which means that there is camera evidence in Moline that we're not seeing either. We just see the same old TMZ 420. Yeah. Pacing outside Walgreens as a hologram or something. Sure. Anywho's, the media blitz that came after you guys showing Prince riding his bicycle around town to prove he was alive and well was kind of obvious. Later that same evening, throwing a Paisley Park After Dark party where he showed off the new guitar. And the fact that the media, some stories, depends on who you read, they like to publicize that Prince said, wait a few days, save your prayers. Some of them say save your prayers for a few days, but the other Prince said, wait a few days before you waste your prayers. Go check it out. It's on the original Instagram. So why would a Prince go on and say, wait a few days before you waste your prayers? Because they all knew what they thought they were going to get away with anyway. Now, also, though he was publicized to be around on the 16th and have the Paisley Park After Dark, like I said, if you watch the Let's Talk About Text video, I go minute by minute how on April 17th, he tweeted from Paisley Park After Dark party reading, it said, I am transcended, which he also texted on the 15th, which would have been the time he was at the hospital. You can tweet that you're transcended. No, unless you're doing drugs. So on April 18th, I discussed how Larry Graham and nobody knows where they were. I'm skimming. I've talked about Aunt Charlene, you guys. It's really important to know that on the morning of 4/20, the media file tells us that Kirk's only relative, Aunt Charlene, had showed up to offer moral and comfort support as she was his only family member. Yet his phone is filled with his ex-wife and his daughter and everybody else, and they're quite plentiful. So this Aunt Charlene that showed up on the scene, who he directed to go to his address and get in his kitchen cupboard and get the 3 pill bottles out that were written in the name Prince R. Nelson. The fact that the DEA goes on to write that those bottles said Prince Rogers Nelson is a huge lie, because when you look at the bottles online, they clearly say Prince R. Nelson. Now, Jim Olsen promised no stone unturned. So a bottle that says Prince R. Nelson is not the same as Prince Rogers Nelson. I don't care. You can't take a middle initial and make it someone's name. You can't make someone Peter Bravestrong because the handwritten lyrics of You Got the Look are in there. Okay? Just stop. Stop the lies. Anyway, they ride back to get the pills out of Kirk's house, and Aunt Charlene talks about how talkative and friendly Prince is and how he paid cash for her mother's cancer treatments. Cash parties, cancer treatments, cash withdrawals that Phaedra had in her accounts receivable. It's all there, you guys, the breakdown. Check out the evidence slideshow, though, because you can see the pill bottles and all the identities for yourself. Also, you guys, crucially important to watch the video on Paul Podolsky. It's file number CW875. It cracks me up every time I read it because it states in black and white that on 1/19/18, they learned about an incident that happened on 6/18/18. Cut and paste. 1/19, heard about an incident that happened on 6/18. Both it's Matrix. It's Matrix, you guys. It's twisted. It's messed up. So listen, I can't see. I hope that the things that I'm like coming here and talking about don't seem too redundant, but I said I'm never going to stop making the videos, and I'm not. I don't care if anybody watches them or not. It helps get the truth out into the atmosphere. It helps you guys to understand that hopefully it helps you to understand that I'm not a conspiracist, that I'm not coming here to promote a YouTube channel and be popular, that I'm just coming to pave the way for the creator. I'm trying to let you guys know because I don't want anybody's souls to be trapped, man. I don't want when I stood there and I was in the heaven place, and I want you guys to know truly that I fought for every soul, for every person, for everybody, because to be told this lie, um, it's really devastating, actually. I had the pleasure of being talked to by the Creator in the heavenly place, so I think I'm probably stomached it a little more readily than some people probably can. Non-believers probably they don't have a problem maybe believing what I'm saying, but if you base your life on what you've been taught about this man Jesus that doesn't even exist in the original scripture, and you really sit back and look at the world of politics and all the things that go in the world, and realize that when I was in the life after life, that what would you ask if you had just one question? I asked the damn truth, and I got the truth, and I wasn't really ready for it either, you guys, but here it is. And it's coming from the beginning to the end. I mean, from the Hebrew, to the Prince Rogers Nelson investigation. That's what I mean. Um, it's not the end, because it's definitely not over. And that's what I'm trying to get out, you guys, is that how truly it is, truly uncomfortable. You could probably see my discomfort to come here and say these things and know what people say about you behind your back. But truly, truly, you guys, I know what I know. And when the Creator speaks, you listen. When love calls, you got to go. And that's what I'm doing. And I'll find a million more ways to say it. Some of it might be redundant, some of it might not. I'm going to try to help you to understand that the name David in Hebrew, Dalet Vav Dalet, it looks like 3 sevens, okay? It's 3 times 7, which is 21. All 7 and will watch them fall. He's a soul that has been carrying us all through, because the way that the scenario has been sold is not true. It's just him. And now he's got me, and we need you. And that's a fact, because what good is a king without people that believe in him? What good is a country without a leader? What good is anything without belief and love, you guys? And like I said, I'll give my all every single time I come here. I'll do it goofily, and like SpongeBob said, wearing a sombrero and dancing in a funny way. I'm not sure. C-I-M-P-F-I-R-E song. I know that one day you guys will appreciate this information. I really do. I have faith in that. I appreciate you watching. Even if I go off a little bit sometimes, or I'm redundant sometimes, but truly, when you read the essays and the files and you do all your research on biblical things, and you know your Hebrew, at least somewhat, because the Creator shows me. It's not like I'm the one doing it. He shows me. So that's why I come off kind of wonky when I'm trying to explain it, because it's hard. It's foggy. But I don't care, because there's nothing I'd rather be doing. I can't let evil win. I won't. You shouldn't either, you guys. Your soul should be first and foremost on your mind. What you're going to say to him when he asks you what you did to find him, how you found him, what you did to help other people. That's the main message. I think I'm talked out. I don't know. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. There's always more that I want to say. There's like one of these times I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night and come here, because I always get these really deep thoughts and visions and stuff. And I feel like I could be a lot more eloquent about it, and make you guys feel what I feel and what I've been shown, and to know how deep it all goes, and why a person who showed themselves to the world as Prince Rogers Nelson could and would be the creator and sustainer, because of the breakdown, you guys, because breaking down of America and using 1776, which also, because of the way that the letters are shaped, Dalet Vav Dalet, you see how these Dalets have this little thing on the top that looks sort of like a safety pin. Well, it also looks like a 6 when you turn it upside down. So that's where they get 1776. which equals 21, and 1777, which spells the name of David, without the one, because you can drop them in gematria. It's 21. It's Genesis 4:24. It's 7 times 70. It's the olive. It's the breakdown, you guys. I've showed you these things before. If you look at the name David and turn it upside down, you get Veta. You get 19. Pi is 19. I know there's a lot of people out there that believe that the shooting at Robb Elementary was as real as the one at Sandy Hook and as real as the 9/11 terror attacks. However, I'm here to tell you 19 children, you guys. PI, Prince investigation. 19, what was it? 19 something on 9/11. 19 terrorists, was it supposed to be 19? It's always going to be 19 because it's a code number, because it's upside down 1/6, and hey, today's 6/1. So, but anyway, the Book of Enoch, the 316, you guys, don't believe the lie. Look in your own heart. Ask yourself who and why and what you believe, but you better be able to answer why. You better be able to answer why you believe it and fight for what you believe in. You don't have to put it all on YouTube like I do, but you're going to answer for yourself. It's going to be cool. You should want to be clean and good. I'll be back. Count on it.